Welcome again to another video where I would like to share with you the summary from this book by John C Maxwell, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And today I'd like to share with you from the law number 4. But if you haven't watched the law number 1, number 2, and number 3, I really recommend that you go to Facebook page or YouTube or Instagram TV, legacy.tv, for you to really watch that video, that summary. I think you will learn a lot from that. And for today, I'd like to share with you about the law number 4. It is the law of reflection. In the law of reflection, it says this: learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. And this is very important. If you want to grow, reflection is one of the best way for you to really grow in yourself. And also because as you reflect, you will learn about your self-awareness, and from there you can learn a lot about yourself. And I think if you really go into this law of reflection, you can grow much faster, and I think you can grow much deeper in yourself. I like this quote by Peter F. Drucker. He was a management expert. He says this: follow effective action with quiet reflection. From quiet reflection will come even more effective action. And also from Confucius, he says this: learn without reflection is a waste. Reflection without learning is dangerous. And also from Vion's Woon, she says this: sometimes you have to look back in order to understand the things that lies ahead. You see, self-growth or self-awareness can happen most of the time if we can take time to think and to reflect and then to learn, or we learn to unlearn from that reflection. Whatever the result of that reflection, either we continue to learn better or you stop learning from that experience. But whatever it is, we need to take time to think and also reflect. And one of my stories that I never tell a lot of people, because this is quite embarrassing story, but I like to share with you about how the power of reflection really changed my life. And one of the bad thing that happened to me, I don't really want to call it bad thing, but one of the best experience from the worst situation in my life is when I go to prison. One of the reason is because I maybe misbehaved with the officer in the airport, and then I was taken up from that. I insult the officer in the airport, which is not my best moment. So I took that, and then they took me to the airport police station, and from there they do some investigation. And after midnight, around 1 or 2 a.m., after that they send me to prison. Some of my friends, they say there is not really prison, there is just jail. But I just tell them that this is not jail, this is prison, where they strip away my clothes, and I need to wear like orange t-shirt like this, and I need to fully naked, and also go and they cuff me, and then we go into the prison where I also mix around with other inmates. To cut the story short, during the time it was very cold because I sleep in the cement place, and it was very cold. And from there, I'm thinking about what is happening in my life, why I go to prison, why this happened to me. And during that time, I really take time. I cannot sleep well, but I'm using the time to really reflect about myself. And from there, I learned that there's something that I learned about myself. Some of it is that I learned that I have this spirit of rebellion, where I like to fight authority and all that. I think that is bad habit, but from that experience in prison, I'm thinking about, yes, I have this spirit of rebellion. And also I think about, I always says that I'm a good thinker and all that, but actually during that time of stress, and also during the time of the way I treat the officer in the airport, and from there I can see that actually I'm not really a man of that character that I thought I was. And from there I learned much about myself. And also there's a good thing about from that experience too. I learned to be, because I was so busy around and I didn't take time to think, and also it helped me during time in that prison. It helped me to reflect about myself and how should I grow. And this is not the thing that I really want to share with you guys about my time in prison, but this is not my best moment. But I think for me, because of that prison moment, it let me think about my own character. It let me think about my own leadership. Do I really I am when what I taught or what I teach people, do I really apply that in my life? And from that, on that jail or in that prison moment, I really think about myself, how low I am. I think that time is really humbling process. But because I'm going to the jail, it helped me to reflect about my own self, my own life and all that. If that never happened to me, I think I will become a very proud man and also become someone who is very hypocritical. All of us, we have hypocrisy in our life, but I think I become more hypocrite if that thing doesn't happen to me. So this is my story. I think that is forced reflection, but I think that time really helped me to reflect about myself, my leadership in my life as in general. So there is a power of pausing. So in the book, John share about I think 4 points about the power of pausing. And the Bible says this in Psalm 46 verse 10 says this: "Be still and know that I'm God." The verse says that be still and to know that I'm God. Only when we be still, then we know the presence of God. That is also the same way in the way that we want to grow. Only when, because if you grow and grow and grow and take action and action and action without reflection, you become learning, just like Confucius says this: learning without reflection is waste. Reflection without learning is dangerous. But if you continue to learning, but then you don't take time to reflect, it become a wasteful event in your life. So John says this in the power of pausing. 4 things that he outlined. Number 1 is that reflection turn experience into insight. Reflection turn experience into insight. Experience is not the best teacher. Experience, all of us, we have experience. I have experience in prison. There are also other inmates who come to the jail and going out to the jail the same way. I talk to them about why they're coming to the jail, what are their crime and all that. Sometimes they have been to the jail like many times before. For me, it will be my first time experience. But if you don't experience is not the best teacher. But John says evaluated experience is. If you evaluate your experience, it'll become your greatest teacher. But if you have that experience alone, it's not your greatest teacher. Imagine I'm going to the prison and I don't really reflect about myself, about my leadership, about my life. That experience is a waste of time. Only if I evaluate that experience, then that experience become an insight to me. This is what John said. This is why John says reflection turn experience into insight. When you take time to reflect, that experience, what you have learned, what you can unlearn, it become the insight in your life. And you need to turn that insight into something useful or something that beneficial for you. So reflection turn experience into insight. Number 2 is that everyone needs a time and place to pause. Every one of us, we need time and place to pause. Richard Angelus, one of my nickname. Angelus in the Catholic history, they call it Angelus, whereby it is a series of prayers where they recite prayer 3 times a day, on the morning, midday, and evening. I think when they listen to the bell ringing, I think they call Angelus. Take time for them to stop and recite the prayer in the morning and also midday and also evening. From this word Angelus, it can give us a sense that all of us, we need time and place to pause. Time to pause. Why? Because we want to make sure that we are in the right direction. Growth require you to know, are you in the right direction? And that is not one time's evaluation. We need to over and over again, we need to know, do you really in the right track? Or are you off tracks from your life? If you're off track, you can go back to track. But if you never reflect, you don't know either you off track or in the track. I like to suggest this book by, there are a lot of times when I will suggest books. I suggest book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. And in that book, he says about these 2 systems in our brain or in our making decision. Because he's psychologist, he says this: the system number 1 is fast and intuitive kind of thinking or making decision. And the system number 2, we becoming more slower and more logical thinking. It require you to think slower and more logical. So in our life, we need, as a leader, we need to have these 2. System number 1 is system number 2. But all of us, we also need to cultivate the system number 2, where we need to think slower and also think logically or reflect on what we have done. So every one of us need time and place to pause. And as a leader, if you want to or as you are, not necessarily leader, if you want to think about your growth, you need to think also slower and also more logical way, which is system 2 in the book by Daniel Kahneman. You need place also, where you need place to create habit for you to think. This one I will going to share with you guys later. Number 3 is that pausing with intention expands and enriches thinking. Pausing with intention expands and enriches thinking. There are people also who go into jail, maybe for whatever reason. I don't want to say what the reason. For example, like Nelson Mandela and also Anwar Ibrahim. Both of them, they went to prison, either in their political ways and maneuver and all that. They were sent to prison. And during that prison time is the time where they, like Nelson Mandela and Anwar Ibrahim, I see when I read about both of them, is that they take their time in jail to really study and read books. They find a good insight when they read books in the prison. But of course, when they go to prison, they are not intentionally want to go to prison. Also with my own story just now, we are not intentionally want to go to prison, but that prison moment is the time when they really learn, and they learn much, they reflect much, they think much, they write books, and they also read books, they also teaching others or instruct others or sharing what they have learned in the prison. Now imagine, this is not intentional, now imagine we do some intentional time to really take time to reflect. Now, if this is what they learn, like Nelson Mandela and Anwar Ibrahim in the prison, when they're in the prison, this is what they get. Now, imagine if you intentionally take time and place to read and to reflect and to pause. This experience intentionally will expand and enriches your thinking. It will help you to sort through your experiences, and also it help you to put it into perspective, and also it help you to plan for the future. And I like this quote by John Max. He says this: "A minute of thought is worth more than an hour of talk." Very interesting quote. And number 4 is that the power of pausing. Number 4 is that when you take time to pause, use these 4 eyes. In John share about these 4 eyes. Number 1 is that investigation, where you figure things out. You take time to figure things out, and also you ask question about this experience or the time when you reflect, your investigation. And then after that, you go to another stage where incubation. Incubation is that where you put the idea and the experience at the back of your mind, or as John says, you slow cook what you want to think about, and also you take like a let it sip slowly into your mind. Just put it in some way. You think about it, but not intentionally think about it, but put it in the back of your mind. So after you investigate, your incubation, and then another level will be illumination. Illumination is where the result from this investigation and also from this incubation, it become an aha moment where now I'm figured it out. Wow, this is what I've learned. Wow, this insight is useful. It will become illumination. But you don't stop there. You need to turn it into illustration. Illustration, John says, like putting flesh on ideas, or as I like to put it in the context of your life. So what you have learned from your investigation and also incubation, it will become your illumination. It become, wow, this is good ideas, and then you need to turn it into illustration, where you put it in the context of your life or in the context of your working time and all that. So this is what the result of reflection thinking, the law of reflection. Learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. So these 3, the power of pausing, it turns reflection, turns experience into insight. Number 2, that everyone needs a time and place to pause. Number 3 is that pausing with intention expand and enriches thinking. And number 4 is that when you take time to pause, use the 4 I's: investigation, incubation, illumination, and illustration. So there you go. That is why pausing or reflection is very important in our life. John also wrote in this book, he says that good questions are the heart of reflection. And then John Maxwell continued to share in the book about what are some of the questions that really help him to think through and help him in this law of reflection. He shares some of the questions and all that. But I find that maybe I like to share with you about my 5 questions that can help me in my law of reflection. Before that, I like to recommend books. Recommend books by John C Maxwell again. In his book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. I really recommend that book. Read that book. And Anthony Robbins says this: successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. Why? A good question will help us to have better or good answer. That's why question is very, very essential. Good questions are the heart or essential in the law of reflection. So, what are the 5 questions that I ask myself? Okay, this is 5 questions that I ask myself. Briefly, question number 1 is about gratitude. About gratitude, I ask myself, what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for? What are three things that I'm very grateful for? So before I went to bed, I will think about what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for today, and then I close it in my prayer before I go to sleep. But this question helped me to be in gratitude. So, and second question is that about education, my own personal education. I ask this question: what I have learned today. What I have learned today, either from the books that I read, or from the audio books that I hear, or from the people that I meet, and what I've learned today. This helped me in my own personal growth and in my education. And number 3 is that the question of legacy. As you know, legacy is one of my favorite words, and also that's why I put on this legacy.tv TV and podcast and all that, because this legacy question. In legacy, I ask this question: how can I add values to others today? How can I add values to others today? This question helped me to add value to others. How can I? This question really, I really learned from John C Maxwell. He asked about adding value to others. But for me, as a legacy, for my own legacy, how can I add values to others today? It forced me to think. It forced me to think about how can I help people today. That's why I also make this video, because I ask question: how can I add value to you today? And also I ask question on improvement. In the improvement question, I ask this: how can I improve my strength? How can I improve my strength? Because you need to focus on your strength and you need to improve it every day. And also, how can I reduce my own weaknesses? I don't want to focus too much on my weakness, but sometimes some of my weakness really need to learn over and over again. For example, one of my weaknesses is my passion. I am really impatient kind of people. I always want to do things faster than normal. That's why, but I need to reduce my weaknesses, but I want to focus on my strength. That's the question of improvement. And lastly, I asked about this question about curiosity. I want to keep on become a person full of curiosity. In this question, there's only one word for that question: why. So when I read book, why? So when people give me some idea or whatever thing happened in a meeting and whatever, I ask why every day. Why this happened? Why this happened and all that. So these are the 5 questions I ask myself. On gratitude, what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for? On education, what I've learned today. On legacy, I ask myself, how can I add value to others today? And on improvement, I ask, how can I improve my strength and reduce my weakness? And the question of curiosity, I ask, why? This is my 5 questions every day. But I like to suggest to you to ask yourself question. This is mine. You can borrow mine, or you can create your own. So whatever it is, this question will help me to grow. It helped me to reflect about what I've done in my daytime. You can borrow my question, you can borrow John Maxwell question, or you can come up with your own question for you to reflect every day or at least once per week. So as a closing, these 3 things is my suggestion to you. 3 things that I want to suggest to you. Number 1 is that you need to intentionally find a time and place for reflection. Again, you need to intentionally find a time and place for reflection. Don't find a time like excess time or leftover time in your calendar. If you have calendar box, put that time for you to grow, put that time for you to reflect, or once in every month, or once in every weeks, or every weekend, for example, or every days before you go to bed. For example, my question about gratitude, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for today? You got to find you don't like find excessive time or leftover time. You need to allocate time. You want to be intentional in your reflection. And every year, I always take time for my sabbatical time for myself, where I just me and myself with books or with audiobooks or with my Bible and all that, so that I get once in every year, I take time to move away from Sarawak or away from Kuching and all that. I take time for me to have break, for me to reflect. Really intentionally find time and place for reflection. And as for place, I like to go for a walk. Walk is one of my best time for reflection. Walking is one of the best time for me to get a new idea, to think things through. And also I like to hiking the mountain and all that. And also one of my favorite place is a coffee shop, but I don't want to share with you where do I drink, because I like to really keep it personal. And when I go to the coffee shop, I take time or place for me to reflect, and that's why I get all this note when I'm in a coffee shop. So it gives me time for me to think. And number 2 is that you need to reduce time on social media, but you use it to share useful insight. This seems like contradict suggestion, but really you need to reduce your time in social media. Sometimes technology and social media can become, it's not the enemy, it can become the enemy of reflection. So reduce your time in social media, especially if you think that you are addictive to your social media. Reduce that time, because it can become enemy of your reflection. So I like to recommend to you another book by Carl Newport. It's called Deep Work. That book is amazing. I really recommend this book by Carl Newport, Deep Work. Or you can read this book by books called Hyper Focus by Chris Bailey. I think Chris Bailey. So I recommend these 2 books. But then you see, after you get out or reduce your time in social media, I suggest to you, I'm not anti social media, but I'm suggest to you this. But then after you reduce your time or get away from social media, I like to suggest to you that you use it. When you use social media, you use it after you reflect. You think about what you have what you have learned from your own reflection. If it's personal, you don't need to share with others. But if you think that the things that you have reflect can benefit others, can help others, can add value to others, you share it in social media. But if their thing is so personal, you don't need to share it. But if you find that things can help people, you share it on social media. So this is what I'm saying. You reduce time on social media, but after you do reflection, you can use it to share useful thought. So this is not about getting away or take out your social media, but I'm saying that intentionally reduce time with social media, but when you come back, you want to share what you have reflect, what you have learned in your own reflection. And number 3 is that ask tough question then can help self-growth. You see, don't be too soft on yourself. Of course, you must be kind with yourself, but don't be too soft on yourself. You need to ask tough question to yourself. For example, when I'm in prison, I need to ask tough question myself. Why am I doing this thing? I myself, as a Christian, why I do this thing. I need to ask tough question. This question is really painful to me. This question can also sometimes can bring me down. But because if I don't ask tough question about myself, I really cannot grow. If you want to really grow in this law of reflection, you really need to ask yourself tough question. It is better for you to ask yourself tough question than other people ask you tough question, right? So you want to ask tough question to yourself because you want real answer, and because you want honest response from yourself, and because you want to reflect reality. We don't want to live in the bubble of everything positive and all that, but you need to ask tough question to yourself. You want to know what is the reality is happening in your life. You want real answer, you want honest response, and you want also reflect reality. You see, you need to know where you are so that you can go where you want to be. And that is, I think, why the law of reflection is very important. Learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. 3 suggestions that I want you to bring home is that intentionally find a time and place for reflection. Number 2 is that reduce time on social media, but you use it to share useful insight. And number 3 is that ask tough question that can help yourself growth. Until we meet again, and help me to share this video if it's helpful to you, until we meet again in the next video. Goodbye.